What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of No Hype. We are here with the one and only Bill McMullen for episode number 265. And now we are only 100 away from 365 videos of No Hype.
Yo, what's good? What's good, Lex? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm great. Just here chilling. Dude, I can't get over that thing. Jeez.
I know that's the giant AT-AT. That's the giant version of the toy, which I think we talked about, right? I brought one out for us for the discussion, but the original AT-AT right here, you can see it. I can kind of simulate it a bit, right?
Yeah, I got one right here too.
Oh, nice. Oh, hey, there we go. Yeah, so that was one that it was actually really nice. Lex, I got contacted by these guys in Toronto, the Six, and they were doing a like kind of a museum style exhibit of toys, and it was called this is not a toy or something like that,
Right.
And it was kind of put together with the people at the Design Exchange, this design museum collective up in Toronto, and Pharrell Williams, and the one of the guys curating it was a fan of my work from the early days. Like, he kind of thought it was an important part of the earlier days, which I'm always flattered to hear, because there's just so much going on in that space. So he was like, I would like to include the AT-AT. And we have Murakami and Cause and Friends with You are all putting something in there, and we'd like to have you involved. And of course I was like, I would love to. And they explained to me that they were going to have these large pieces by Cause and Murakami, Friends with You, and a few others, and as well as like a huge collection of Dunnies from Kid Robot, and a lot of Kubrick pieces, just a lot of really great stuff. And then I thought, they were telling me they were going to have these really large pieces, and I kind of thought, damn, I really I kind of lied, actually. I said I'm working on a giant, like a 12-foot version of the AT-AT, for Comic-Con later in the summer. This was going to happen in February, and I was talking to them in December, and they said, oh, that would be, do you think you could get it done for the exhibit? And I thought, I'll try. Yeah, sure. Because I didn't want to go into this show with these. They were so kind, and they were just putting me on this level that I'm not often put on by others. So I just thought, oh, I want to participate on the level that those others are as well. Like, I want to make a big version of one of my pieces. So, so I kind of spent the whole month of January, just, I'm here in California. I have a large, like a studio out here, a workshop, a big wood shop. And I've got all sorts of technology and crazy stuff like CNC machines. And I just started going in and just building this thing.
Is that wood?
It is wood. It's primarily plywood. And it's kind of like, layered, laminated, layered together. And then I took all the parts to an auto paint place here in San Diego, and the guy was really kind. And when you come to a place like an auto painting place with an idea like this, sometimes they're really into it. They're like, oh, that's cool. It's not a, it's
they're
not
like, we paint cars all day,
exactly.
Like, I'd love to paint this.
Yeah, we don't have to repair a hood or something that got scratched up. So they were super cool, and they just hit it off, and I actually had to paint a bunch myself as well, which was kind of interesting. I didn't know much about auto paint until the week before I drove it up to Toronto. But yeah, then that's what happened. The museum was like, well, we can't really get it up here in time for the show. because our shipping guy is they were only going once a week, driving across the country, and there was like a weird storm coming up, and it just was going to be, it was kind of like, look, the options are not do it, which of course was not an option after I'd spent a month building it, and then pay like a huge amount of money for a custom shipping thing, like a one-off shipping, which was crazy, and no one was going to pay for that. It was going to be like something like $25,000, not realistic. And then the other option was wait like 2 or 3 weeks for our guy to get it out there, so I'd miss the show opening. And then the final option was, or you could drive it here yourself, and we'll pay for the U-Haul and the rental, the truck rental. And I was like, I guess that's what it's going to be. So my friend Sam, who has been shooting a bunch of video of me making things like this, just went along for the ride, and we drove a U-Haul out to Toronto.
Dude, that's incredible though. That's
from
just
San
like,
Diego. It was pretty crazy. It was a wild story with the snow and everything. But we got out there, and we made it in time. We had the thing set up for the Friday opening, and yeah, it was cool. It was a cool thing. So I just, I got it back, and it was just in parts, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And I just thought, I have a big room here at the house. I should just set it up, and and so it's protected from the elements. It's not really able to, it can't really stay outside in the rain or anything like that. It just, it's painted, but it wouldn't last. So it fits in the room here. It looks like a gigantic pachyderm, like a museum exhibit or something.
It's incredible, dude. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's like,
what a great story though, dude. Like seriously.
Yeah, man, it was wild. And I don't know, hopefully, maybe someday it'll make it into someone's collection, because as cool as it is here, it's also, I don't know, I think it's probably,
you want it to be appreciated.
It's probably not getting displayed like it might if someone else had it or something. I did take it to Designer Con one year. That was great. That was fun. But
well, since we're since we're already,
so it's all based on this toy that I did, like back in like the early 2000s, the AT-AT, which is, of course, I don't know, maybe some of your viewers, I know know about this, but it's like a combination of a Adidas shell toe sneaker and a Imperial Walker, and it's kind of just like a signature thing I did a long time ago, and that's why I made this one. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No worries. I was just absorbing it. So that it's funny you say that, because what drew me to this is, well, actually it didn't even start with that. It started with this. I found out about this.
Oh, right.
But before we get into that, when I found out about this, and I'm like, man, that's pretty damn hip hop. It's like, you ever seen this TikToks or like a reel or something that says like, tell me I'm something without telling me I'm something, like tell me I'm hip hop without telling me I'm hip hop.
Right.
Right?
Zang.
Yeah. Right. So,
right, man.
And then I saw this and I'm like, man, like this has to be hip hop, because let's face it, if it wasn't for Run DMC, would the Superstar Adidas be so iconic?
No, absolutely not. I mean, for certain sneakerheads, it always will be, right? But you're absolutely correct. That was where I began this kind of like weird, like I used to kind of not like that shoe in a weird way, because it was like there was something about it that really irked me about the Superstar, and now the Superstar is a little bit different from how it was. It's got kind of a weird bluish, like the whole toe box and everything is different from how it was. Like if you watch like the Walk This Way video, and they just come walking down the steps in the final part of the song, you'll see that the shoe, the toe box is more of a rounded, like this, whereas now it's kind of like this like pencil eraser shape almost. It's kind of weird. But what really bothered me about that shoe was that the white levels didn't match. Like the rubber of the toe didn't match the leather. The leather was just bluer and whiter. And of course the materials they're just going to be that way. But it used to kind of irk me, but upon, I mean, I love the shoe. I've got a pair of those classic shell toes still, you know, with fat laces and stuff, that I got before they kind of really started going back into the retro reissues. But I got really into the idea that, and that's why you'll see like on these things that I do that are, you know, like shell toe derived, there's like a slight, you
Yeah.
know, the rubber areas are
The
color.
discoloration.
Hey, what is this? I can't beat you. You got all my stuff. But yeah, so that kind of, that iconic, that odd little discoloration thing between the rubber and the leather, was something that I noticed from the Run DMC video. And then of course the shoes themselves, once you own them, you know, the materials age differently. And I grew to really love that shoe. And that my fascination with that kind of began back, you know, during that time, of course, with Run DMC, but then, you know, it shifted pretty quickly, you know, and that sort of vibe wasn't exactly what hip hop was for a little while. You know, it kind of shifted away from those sort of sneakers, you know, and Run DMC to kind of a more like, you know,
Basketball shoe, really.
well, basketball shoes, but also just frankly, like Tim's, like Timberlands, and, you know, just like kind of boots, you know, and jeans, and, you know,
Yeah,
puffy
90s
vest
was
type vibe.
super
You know, I mean,
super basketball shoe and a lot of boots, right? Tim's high
yeah,
techs were
yeah, yeah. I
kind of
mean, like
big. A
I
lot of
would
those.
say like East Coast, like Black Moon type stuff, you know,
Yeah.
like a lot of that, like just that sort of look, like Mob Deep, that, and it would all shift so quickly, you know. But then this funny thing kind of happened where it was like, Check Your Head came out, and then suddenly Beastie Boys put this kind of West Coast Outwater Village, you know, and in many of their photos and videos, they were just rocking like these, you know, like Gazelles, Adidas Gazelles, and Adidas, you know,
Sambas too.
yeah, like Sambas and the Campus, and, you know, and of course Shell Toes a bit, but, and, you know, just Puma Clydes. And it was almost like there was this kind of resurgence of old school stuff. And even though now it just seems like, what are you talking about? You're talking about a matter of like 3 or 4 years, but, you know, now because it's 2021. So the difference between like 89 and 93 sounds like, is there any difference? But there really was.
Oh yeah,
It was
for
shifting
sure.
really
Like
radically. And
tremendously.
so it was kind of like, to reference Shell Toes started becoming old school, you know, and the Air Max 95 was kind of new school to me at that time. It was like one of my favorite shoes. Like those are my two favorite shoes basically, are the Shell Toe and the Air Max 95. So, you know, now it's like the Air Max 95 is also old school. But at the time that I was so fascinated with the stuff, it was pretty new, you know. Anyway, those are
Yeah.
some weird little sneaker
Well,
subtleties there. But yes, thank you. I appreciate that. It is definitely bred of hip hop. And, you know, as a graphic designer, I always felt there was like kind of a similarity in music, you know, like hip hop music production as well, where you know, the scanner is very analogous to the sampler. And, you know, you're just kind of creating these, you know, I was doing a lot of club flyers during the like mid 90s and 90s. And, you know, it was just like, I mentioned club flyers because, as is with hip hop or something, it was kind of almost like no really hard set rules. You know, visually you could kind of do whatever you wanted. You could take whatever you wanted visually, because it was like on a mixtape level, you know.
right.
It was like no one's gonna come down and bust you for using imagery from, you know, different strokes, a 70s show, you know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna know. They're not gonna bother. So you can just like reference these things for the people in your city, and it's not really gonna, you know, you don't have to worry about clearing it or anything like that. So that sort of thing. I mean, I'm also really into music production as well, so it was just kind of like I would just kind of just get into creating these things, and you know, I did an illustration of uh, the imperial. I did an illustration of this basically, and I made a T-shirt of it. And there was a guy in
What year was that? Do you remember what year?
Wow. I mean, it was like 1999, like 98, 99. I started really doing these kind of I mean, at the time I was calling them like cross pollinations, you know, because I was combining things that I loved, you know, just like some, you know,
It's like a mashup. I mean, for me,
peanut butter. Yeah. Nowadays, I think it's just the nomenclature is mashup. So I'm comfortable with that. So like the mashups that I was making at the time visually were things that I loved, you know, which were I come from like a design and kind of industrial design background. Of knowledge, really, not really like work at that point. I wasn't really, you know, I wasn't working at age like 17 in any industrial design capacity, but my father taught industrial design at San Diego State University. And so I've always been exposed to a lot of like manufacturing techniques and woodworking and metalworking and just like weird little things. And as a result, also, you know, he kind of introduced me to like Charles and Ray Eames, the California designers, of course, which have, you know, they passed away now, of course.
The Eames,
but you know,
is that like the guy who did the Herman Miller chairs?
Yes,
The
absolutely.
Eames, that wooden.
It was
Okay.
a married couple named Charles and Ray Eames, and they were based out of Santa Monica, California, but they had a lot of influence on mid-century stuff. They designed like, oh God, like 6 or 7 classic chairs, you know, and a bunch of stuff for different companies for promotion. And, you know, I mean, I absolutely encourage anybody into any design to just check out the Eames. It's EAMES. And yeah, I mean, it was like I was brought up around that idea, even though, to be honest with you, at one point, like in the late 90s, I was like kind of struggling to remember who that was. I actually had to go look it up again back then, because I was like, I knew what I was thinking about, but I didn't know the name again. And then, you know, now I own like several Eames chairs, and you know, just I look for that stuff. I try to collect it when I can. It's a little hard nowadays, but like 25 years ago, it was a little bit easier. You could stumble
I
across
see a
it
lot
on
of bootlegs, well, a lot of
Of
dupes of
course,
the
man. I
Eames.
mean, listen,
Yeah.
even Modernica, the major company that offers a lot of this sort of stuff, you know, they reproduce a lot of Eames chairs without the actual I think now they've worked it out, but at the time they were like they're just kind of manufacturing these things out of different materials and things. But yeah, like the fiberglass chairs and the wood chairs that the Eames made, I'm really into that kind of stuff. So I would just make these, I would combine these ideas like in my head, like, oh, what would be really cool? It would be so cool. So I made a t-shirt with like a graphic with I mean, these things sound so basic nowadays because people are actually doing these things. But at the time, it was like, what is that? I had drawn an Eames chair with camouflage on it.
Still.
And it's like, it sounds so acceptable, and like it sounds boring now because, you know, there is actually a bathing ape
I mean,
Modernica, you know,
not to
there's a
me,
collab.
not to me, because like I like history, but more
All right, I
particularly
appreciate that. Yeah,
history about shit that I like, which is pretty,
of
which is,
course.
you know, toys
Yeah,
and shit, and like hip
yeah,
hop culture. So
yeah,
I remember coming across trap toys. Are you familiar with trap toys?
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they do bootleg toys, but they call them bootleg toys, but they're really mashup toys, in my opinion.
That's fair. Yeah.
Because they take a He-Man body and they do a different face sculpt, and they'll repaint it, and they'll do the Easy He, right? The Easy E He-Man mashup, which to me is honestly no different than combining an Air Max 95 and a
Of
shuttle.
course, man.
Um, And so because like knowing that you thought about this in like 98, right, in the 90s, way before the toy
Yeah,
thing was ever what it was, designer toys existed, and then you made it
right.
into a toy. I think you did it first personally, and I think like you are the creator of this, like in, you know, like just because you put that idea out there and you like manifested it, you materialized it,
Right,
you put it there,
right,
and it lend inspiration to for other people to do things in that nature, you know, because once something is out there for the world to
right.
see, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's going to evolve, it's going to become something, it's going to
Yeah.
inspire people. So I think that's pretty dope, you know? And
Well,
that's
Lex,
one of the,
I appreciate your take on that. I mean, I appreciate that. I will say I was very early on that kind of concept. I think it was just kind of inevitable. Somebody else, you know, I mean, I think a lot of people began doing it as it became kind of like, whoa, you know, it's like there were certain things that opened my mind to that idea. I'll say early on there's a clothing line out in Los Angeles this guy Rick Klotz did, Fresh Jive.
okay, I remember Fresh
And
Jive.
Fresh Jive, like during the rave era, like in the early 90s to mid 90s, would kind of produce these shirts that it just kind of put us all onto the idea of logo bites. You know, like he had this pretty infamous shirt that just said Jive and it looked like the Tide box,
Right, I
you know, and
remember
it
that.
was just
Yeah,
like real simple classic like
there
mid
was a few
90s
brands
shirt.
doing that.
Yeah, of
Stussy,
course,
Fucked,
man. And
Fucked
you know,
was
but
doing that too. Yeah.
I'm just saying in my own world, like that was like this like mind-blowing concept, like, whoa, you know, because I think, you know, you grow up with these ideas that aren't necessarily taught to you, but you just kind of have this weird sort of respect for brands and well, that's a brand and that wouldn't be right to just try to make that brand my brand, you know what I mean? But it just suddenly became like, you know, and you know, honestly, if you go back a little bit, it's not even, it wasn't even like rave culture, Fresh Jive shirt. Like there's a Who album from the 70s, you know, where, you know, I think it's called the Who Sell Out or something. And it's like they are all with all these products and things, and it's not, you know, it's not an impossible thought. It's just that sort of like, you know, acquisition again, it's very similar to you know, around the same time we had like, you know, MC Hammer, you know, Can't Touch This. It just Vicks the whole essential riff from, you know, Super Freak. And you're like, you can do that now? Like what are we, what's happening? We can do this? Cool, okay. You
Yeah.
know, and it was like, you know, I wasn't at like the forefront where I could like sample tracks and make beats for an artist in the early 90s. I mean, of course I had samplers and synthesizers and stuff. In fact, I still have some of them now, you know, but
What is that? Is that a Juno
so
back there?
that is actually a Jupiter. It's a
Okay.
Jupiter 6. Yeah, it's kind of like my, that's my like, I do have a Juno, but you know, if you can reach for the Jupiter, right? I think you would. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that my way to participate, since I was working with a lot of clothing lines out here in San Diego, um, was to create visuals that combined that stuff. And once it became kind of possible to do it, and I would say that to anybody out there listening that wants to create some stuff, just get really good at literally just like the software that you're going to be using. You know, if you want to edit stuff, get good at editing, learn how to edit it, you know, and I had gotten really good at Illustrator and Photoshop. And so when I thought of one of these ideas, I could kind of move on it pretty quickly and pretty easily, and I could execute it pretty well, you know, and that I think is another thing about it is that your ideas can come through a lot better if they're executed as well as you can, you know. I mean, we're in a very open world with stuff now. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know. It's like the idea can sell it, and that's cool
Right.
too, you know. That's why, you know, a lot of bootleg toys and things. um and anyway, yeah, like I said, man, I'm very flattered that you put me at the very forefront of that. and I do acknowledge, yes, I was very early, and I can't say it myself. I can't
Nah,
say
it's
I
all
made
good.
all
I
that
can
stuff.
say it, and I'm gonna say it, and
Thank
I'm
you,
gonna
man.
continue to say it
Thank you.
because
I'm gonna leave it to you then. I'm gonna leave it to you. But
until
I
something
I
comes out
mean,
that changes my
I do
perspective.
I really do appreciate it. And you know, at the time I was not able to just make toys myself. And what I was going to mention to you is that I had made this t-shirt. It was at this, we had this account that we were selling our t-shirts to. This is in the late 90s, over in the UK. And it was a shirt with the Super Star Destroyer on it. And I got contacted by this woman, and she was like, "Oh yeah, my an artist I work with wants to use your artwork on the cover of their 12-inch, and it's a Dudley avatar or something." And I was like, "Okay, I mean, why don't you email me?" You know, I couldn't really understand. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty good with languages and understanding what people say, but she had a real thick English accent, and I was kind of like, okay, yeah, email me. And I get it. It turns out it's not like Dudley. It's this guy named Deadly Avenger,
Okay.
and he was, you know, he was kind of bubbling like back in the '90s, and he was just like super into the T-shirts that he was getting at his local shop from, I think it was what was it? I think it was Bond? There was a store called Bond. Anyway.
Funny because I know exactly who you're talking about. My buddy who mixes and masters a lot of stuff, he actually works for or with that guy. They own a mastering plant that they built. If I'm thinking about the same person, I'm pretty sure it's Deadly Avenger. They built a mastering plant inside a 200-year-old church with
Oh, brilliant.
the floors elevated, you know, like no, everything is, nothing is
Right.
touching. It's like a room
It's all
inside.
isolated.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all completely isolated on springs. Super
Man.
crazy. Small world.
You know who else had something like that? Um, I don't know if you've ever read those stories about when DJ Shadow was starting to work on stuff, he
Mhm.
would go over to record it at Dan the Automator's place. And apparently Dan the Automator had built like this isolated room inside his house or
I did not
whatever,
know
where,
that.
you know, where it's kind of like, you know, like the putting space around all the stuff to isolate the sound. But yeah, so I was like, oh man, cool. Once I like realized who it was, I had like looked him up a little bit, and I was just super stoked that this guy would be into it. And I ended up but you know, I was kind of like, I don't want to repeat myself on this. I don't want to just use I like in my mind at the moment, because we were making t-shirts, it seemed really like, hey, um that's my graphic for my t-shirt. I don't want to just transpose it onto a record. And so I said, I do want to be involved. I've got another idea. Give me like a week to do it. And that's when I drew the AT-AT, the Adidas AT-AT, the graphic for, you know, combining the shell toe and the walker. And that of course eventually became the toy. And what happened was a friend of mine in Los Angeles saw it and was like, that's fantastic, we should make a toy. And I was like, I would love to make a toy, you know. So, and there you have it. And now it's ended up kind of being like you know, a big part of my history was that toy. So anyway, yeah, man. And then the other ones came along after it, you know, and then revisiting the idea last year, or like 2 years ago now, was the Super Star Destroyer, which is actually the reason I brought up that whole story. Is it was kind of the original version of the idea of the Imperial and the Adidas type thing. But yeah, man. So that's been a fun journey. I didn't really I mean, there's a lot of people that have pressed a lot harder in the toy space. I have other interests, but I enjoy, you know, if somebody wants to lift a heavy weight for me and take an idea and make it into a physical object, I love to do it. But I kind of don't touch that space very often. I just like to dip in every now and then, you know. But I mean, I do love I do love the designer toy space and bootleg toy space. It's a lot of work, man. I have a lot of respect for the people that really grind in there, you know?
Yeah, it is. I mean, these guys are hand painting, hand casting,
Oh
doing
my Lord.
all this stuff.
Yeah, man. I'm
It's
really good friends with this guy, the Suck Lord, which you've
okay.
probably heard
Yeah.
of. And then
Yeah.
also another guy named David Healy made.
Yep.
And both of those guys spend a lot of their time just painting these objects. I've done a few myself, and you're like, why am I'm painting 36 of these things, you
Some
know? And
people just
people,
love that shit, you know?
yeah, no, absolutely, man. You get in the mode and you just get into it. But I'm just
My
thinking
mom,
like,
my mom has patience of a saint, and she puts Swarovski
oh,
crystals on everything. So I
oh,
had her do
nice.
like a Walkman for me. I got a I got a beeper, a 1200 that she did,
Oh
but
man,
she will literally hand put these one by one with a toothpick and
right?
some glue, and she'll spend hours and hours and hours and days doing this shit. I think
Man,
it's some people are just hardwired to like be able to do that. It's like
yeah,
it's
man.
therapeutic for some people.
I actually do get in that mode myself, but I will stop and think. You know, the thing with that scene, as amazing as it is, there's kind of like a real, like there's a bit of a glass ceiling on like how much the community can support you. You know, they're like,
Yeah.
dude, I don't know, I don't want to pay more than $70 for that. You know, and you're like, oh God, it took me like 2 hours to paint each one. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not saying it's all about the money. I'm just saying that is a hard grind if you decide to do that for like the next 3 or 4 years. You know, you're going to be like painting figures and selling figures. And, you know, like I said, the two guys I mentioned, like Sucklord and Healy, both have a really good system that they stick to. And so they can handle it. But I was just like, oh man, I don't know. I
It's
love
not for
to
everybody.
I love to come up with the idea, but then, you know, like you know, casting the resin yourself and all of these things, you know, I mean, I have all the equipment, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So kudos to those guys, you know. But
It definitely is. It definitely is. And I definitely appreciate them and people who do stuff like that. You know, it
right,
makes it interesting. And it's so cool that this shit is so accessible right now. Like everything is
yeah,
accessible in any which way form, you know, you choose to do it, whether you're 3D printing it, whether you just want to, you know, send some stuff off to China to get it done. AliExpress,
yeah,
everybody, people are building whole brands and like off of
yeah.
AliExpress and things like that. So I think that's super dope. But I wanted to talk to you about your time as Def Jam at about your time at Def Jam and the Beastie Boys, because like I was listening to the audiobook, and they mentioned you a few times in the audiobook,
Oh,
and I was like,
actually,
that's
I
pretty
went.
dope.
Somebody told me about that, and I went and listened to it. And it's like Rachel Maddow reads this part and says my name. I'm like, dope! Wow, I can't believe Rachel Maddow had to say my name, and she said it right. A lot of people, if they just read it really quickly, they say McCullen, you know, which I'll take it. Whatever, it's fine. It's actually McMullen. You've been really good with it. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying I was impressed that like Rachel Maddow said it correctly. But I guess, you know, that's the thing. Probably a couple takes. um,
What was your
but
relationship like with Beastie Boys in particular?
well, I mean, I think it's best if I just run like a quick little how I got there type thing. I grew up out here in San Diego. Um, and like many kids in the mid 80s, just was kind of like, what is this hip hop thing, you know? And, you know, I mean, at the time in junior high, I mean, we were hearing, you know, like, These Are the Breaks by Curtis Blow, you know, and, you know, the breaks. And so there was hip hop kind of around, but it was like, it was not as pervasive as it became, obviously. When I got kind of old enough to get involved, I was out buying my own records. You know, it was a lot of like kind of new wave, alternative, industrial stuff, as well as hip hop. Like I would DJ out here, and I would kind of DJ hip hop and funk and soul at some nights, and then industrial stuff and alternative uh, other nights. Whenever a promoter would always be like, "Listen, what are you going to play?" And I'd be like, oh, I mean, it sounds like you want hip hop, right? And they're like, yes, yes, okay, yes, good. All right, we want hip hop. Yeah, they were afraid I would like come in and start playing like Depeche Mode and Joy Division, so I would kind of balance it back and forth with that. And I guess in a way that's kind of that like kind of mashup mentality was already going on in my head. As just a lover of music and culture, which I think you also are as well, you know. And I just spent a lot of time, like I said, like doing a lot of graphics, a lot of, like DJing once or twice a week. I wasn't like a really busy DJ out here. I would just DJ at very specific clubs. And I just kind of, doing the graphics, and then my friend and I were putting out 12 inches and, making music. And I just got this thing. I wanted to move out to New York. I wanted to try living in New York. And so like in the winter of 96, I ended up kind of visiting New York for New Year's, and a 95, 96 New Year. And I met some friends, a friend of mine and like her sister, and his boyfriend had an apartment he was moving out of. So he was going to let me just like rent it like, month to month. And I just thought, I could try this. I'm just going to try this for like 6 months. So I thought I'm going to work on music. I'm going to work on graphics. And I moved out to New York in 1996, and it was fucking cold, man. It was like a crazy, like once every 20-year blizzard type thing. And
That's when I moved out of
my
New York
apartment.
in
Oh, here you go.
96.
Smart. Smart. And another friend of mine was moving to New York around the same time, and he said he had this cousin that worked over at Def Jam. I should go talk to her about maybe they need some freelance work or something. And I went in, I showed him my portfolio of flyers and stuff, and they were like, cool. And I didn't really hear anything much about it, and then like I was working through this like kind of temp agency doing design stuff all during 96. Like the first 6 months I was there, I was just, and in fact, I worked quite a bit in the Twin Towers, actually, for this Solomon Brothers, like doing like graphic design stuff at night. And, it was different from what I thought it was going to be when I moved to New York, because I was just like, I had never lived on my own before. It was kind of a bug out, and then B, I was just like on this weird grind where I was doing this design for like Solomon Brothers, and primarily those would be like flyers for like bank loans and flyers for internal Solomon Brothers golf tournaments. I don't know what the
That's
fuck, dude.
pretty
Seriously,
random.
I would redesign a golf. They had people working 24 hours a day. They had 3 shifts, and I would work because I could get paid the most, and I like being up at night. So I would work from like 10 p.m. to like 5 a.m. or whatever it was. And I would get paid like triple rate, but I would have to do all these changes on flyers that had been done earlier in the day. So I was just doing this. I was just kind of on this weird grind where I'd wake up at like 4, I'd hang out in the East Village a little bit, and then I'd just end up back down at Solomon Brothers in the Twin Towers at night. And it was like, what am I doing? I mean, I'd get home a little too tired to work on any music. And I mean, it was fun because I was earning money. I'd never really earned money like that. I had just been earning like DJ money, it's just like, oh, we did okay tonight. Here's like,
Right.
and then, but this was consistent, like paychecks. And then I got a call back from Def Jam, and they were like, hey, we had some change up over here. Would you be interested in working with us? And I bugged out. Yeah, sure. So I went in, and at the time, to explain how this worked, I worked at a company called The Drawing Board, which is physically in the center of Def Jam at that point. It was a company started by Say Adams and Steve Carr. And Steve Carr now is a director, and Say is he's still designing, but he's become kind of like a figure in the scene, because he was part of the graffiti scene through the 80s, and so he's an early part of that. He actually, I think he just put out something like a book or something. I think he was part of an exhibit that's at the Smithsonian now, for hip hop. But Say and Steve ran this company, The Drawing Board, and they liked what I had shown them and they hired me. And so I ended up working there for many years. And it was like, it just, to me, it was awesome because Def Jam in the 80s was like just a bulletproof label. It was definitely one of those things where you're like, I don't even need to hear it. I'm sure it's pretty good if it's on Def Jam. Let me just check it out. You know, I mean, of course, like everything gets watered down. It doesn't always align with your own interests. But at that point, it was basically LL Cool J and Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill, and, you know, Public Enemy, and just all these other ancillary, you know, artists that were just, it was like Def Jam was really important. So to me, to get to work at Def Jam was like, whoa.
That's insane. I mean,
And, you
I
know, I
think
was
it still
like,
is.
I mean, it still is, absolutely, yeah. And I was like meeting people that I had heard their names like on record, you know, in albums, or I had read about in the Source, you know, because I used to come out to New York for a new music seminar, you know, and so it was kind of, you know, so the reason I'm telling you this whole story is that the real key here is that Say Adams is like lifelong friends with Beastie Boys. He was friends with Adam Horovitz, Ad Rock, long before they were a band. And Adam Horovitz has kind of an interesting story himself. His father was a playwright, and his mother was kind of this I don't even know, like kind of a matriarch kind of around Soho for a bunch of Adam's friends, you know, and just a very communal experience at his house as he was growing up. And Say was a part of that. And so Say was right there as they, you know, as he joined Beastie Boys and, you know, became part of this phenomenon. And so Say, you know, I think it's not hard to guess that any white guy who moves from California in the mid 90s is probably, you know, probably a Beastie Boys fan, you know? So he was like, he knew I loved Beastie Boys. And he was like, you know, all the guys are coming back into town to finish up their record, you know? And at this point they were coming back from Los Angeles to, they were all kind of moving back to New York. In fact, that was one of the things when I was moving away from California. I was like, damn, I never got to meet Beastie Boys, you know? Like there's a few things I was like, I can't believe I'm moving away from California, you know? You know, because Beastie Boys were up in LA at that time, and I had a few friends that worked with clothing lines that had gotten to meet them and got to give them clothes and stuff. And I just thought, I never got to meet them. Wow. And then here I am a few years later out in New York, and my boss, Say, is like, hey, why don't you come by and meet the guys, you know? We're going to be playing basketball at this. I'm terrible at basketball, Lex. I'm the worst. I'm the worst.
I'm right
And
there
I think
with you, bro.
these kind of pickup games, it's kind of like, well, you either better be really good friends with who you're going to play with, or you better be really good. And I was neither. And so it was just really just out of the kindness of everybody's heart to just include me in these games. I was terrible, you know, but it was super fun. We'd go like on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. and Friday nights 9 p.m. at this local school. One of the Beastie Boys would rent out the gymnasium, you know, the court, and it was fun, man. It was just like wild times getting to meet these guys that were seriously cultural heroes to me, very influential on me. In fact, when I met them, I started realizing there's certain types of like sentences and words I don't want to say because I actually learned them from them, and I didn't want to like repeat that and sound goofy, you know. So I was like, wow, this is like the source. I got to, you know, and they're, you know, the thing about them, man, is they're very friendly guys. They're very much like they are on record, like on the records you hear. They're really comfortable with themselves. They're very open and friendly. Of course, like anybody at that level, I think they're pretty guarded also, but I had been introduced to them by a good friend of theirs. And I think I was just very fortunate that I kind of clicked well enough with them that One night they just kind of said, hey, we're going to talk to you and say about working on the graphics for our new album. And, over there at Def Jam, it's a little weird, right? Because Beastie Boys were formerly on Def Jam. And so the only connection between Def Jam and Beastie Boys by this point in the late 90s was that Say, who worked at Def Jam, whose company was at Def Jam, was friends with, and that was the thing that Say and Steve did that was very brilliant. They kept their company separate from Def Jam, which allowed them to work on, work for, we did work for Bad Boy, other labels. We were able to do work for other labels, even though we were housed within Def Jam. And just a brilliant move. I don't know exactly how all that played out, but it happened long before I got there. But it allowed us to work on things like this job for Capitol Records, which of course is, what I'm saying is Beastie Boys were on Capitol Records at that time. And although they're heavily affiliated with Def Jam, just because of the License to Ill record, after that record, they left and went to Capitol.
Right.
And so by the late 90s, to have them it must have been a little weird for them to come into the Def Jam offices. They had legally settled everything and they had moved on, and they had a phenomenal career going, at that point anyway. So I'm sure they didn't really care that much, and I think all the people they dealt with weren't really there any longer anyway. Like Russell really wasn't there at that point. Rick Rubin, of course, had moved on to California and with Def American, and then just moved on from that even to produce. But so they were coming in to talk to us about working on the record. And at that moment at Drawing Board, I was like, we all kind of had our specializations, and I was like this kind of weird Photoshop guy, like weird like rave flyer concepts. Go to Bill, because he'll be able to like build it out in Photoshop or something. Everybody there was very skilled, but I'm just saying in my little lane was like fantastical Photoshop stuff, or put a moon in the background, or make it look like
which version of Photoshop was that you were working on at that time?
Man, I think that must have been like Photoshop 6 or Photoshop 4. I mean, the biggest advance in Photoshop happened around like sometime in the mid 90s. I'd have to look it up exactly. I always wanted to do that Nas track, the history of hip hop one that he did. Yeah. It's like I don't remember what it's called. Damn, it's like I always thought it'd be funny to do like a Photoshop track. I might actually put together a track about Photoshop. But the biggest advance in Photoshop history, I think, is when they added layers, which seems really obvious now. But at the time, to be able to like paste something and not have it like stuck, at the time you would have to like save the file, paste the thing, see if it looked how you wanted it before you clicked away. And then if it didn't really work, you would just revert to the old file. That was your undo.
I don't remember Photoshop without layers. So
oh my God. Well, I'm just saying, so that was, we did have layers at that point, in the 90s. By the time I was working at Def Jam, there were layers, but, and Say was like, look, man, we were very busy with a lot of stuff at that time. Say was really heavily working on a bunch of Jay-Z stuff. And we had a bunch of stuff bubbling with DMX and all these different other artists that were coming out on Def Jam. And at the same time, Say was assigning me to work on this Beastie Boys record. And he was like, listen, man, these guys are really good friends of mine. You got to take this very seriously. And I was like, hey, yeah, I am. They're like one of my favorite bands, of course, So we met with them several times, and they had a lot of ideas of what they wanted to do for the Hella Nasty graphics and the cover. And I worked a lot with Adam Yauch, who I ended up spending a lot of time with and becoming really good friends with. Rest in peace. What an amazing person. What a
brilliant mind, dude. He like
absolutely
after that book, I really I've always liked Beastie Boys, and I think besides the records that everybody knows, I didn't have like a deep knowledge of their catalog. I just knew the big records, right? Like Brass Monkey, Paul Revere,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Hello Nasty was the first Beastie Boys album that I actually purchased, prior to knowing all the singles. So like, that
Right.
cover is very like stuck in my head.
Mine too, man. Mine too. That was some Photoshop layers right there. And it was very much kind of a process where Adam would present a bunch of ideas. Adam Yauk would present a bunch of ideas that the guys had talked about. They would kind of discuss some stuff during the day. I would present something to them. They would look at it overnight. I would get like a phone call in the morning with some ideas for changes, or let's try this. And, believe me, it was such a great honor that they would even trust me with being able to just kind of introduce some thoughts. They didn't always stay. It'd be like, well, that's cool, but no, we don't want to do that. Or like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. What if it was like this? And it was just for like a brief moment to get to, interact in that period of creating those graphics with them was just such an honor. It was so great. I mean, it's like that all the time when I work with people, but for me personally, they were such a cultural, like guide for me through the 80s and early 90s, that to actually get to spend some time with them and just see how the machine worked. It was just a very creative time, for me, and just what insight to just, to be around these guys that meant so much to me, and just see how they worked. And it was awesome. There was no disappointments for me at all. It was great. And we spent a lot of time creating that package for Hello Nasty. It was also at a time where I think it was kind of like the last great era for packaging, because at that, just a few years later, it started to become pretty obvious that the music industry was changing, and you didn't need to physically go to a store anymore to get music. Yeah. I remember being in a taxi cab with Mike D, and the taxi driver, we were talking about something in music, and the taxi driver kind of overheard us, and he's like, "Do you guys use Napstar?" And we're like, "Napstar? He's like, Napstar. We're like, Napster? I don't know. So we Mike and I like looked at each other like, I don't know. And the guy was trying to tell us this thing that just sounded incredible. He's like, yeah, you can get music off the internet.
Free.
For free.
You don't gotta pay nobody.
Of course, Mike is like, what? So I just remember that cab drive. I bet Mike would remember it too, actually. I know he would remember that. We've talked about it before, but it's just so funny. Like the day we were introduced to Napstar
was in the back of a taxi cab.
Oh my God, man.
You're like, dude, you're in a cab. How do you have internet?
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. But I guess, it's just like kind of funny times where, people started to shift. And I don't think packaging has ever really been as important to as many people as it was then. I mean, I think now packaging is like this kind of luxury that a lot of like kind of alternative artists like to work and, do the printing and do all this fun stuff, and major artists as well. But for the average artist that's kind of being, introduced by the label or put out there, just flying a single by, like the graphics that I did, and I don't do many music graphics anymore, but some of the last ones I did, they were like, oh, we just need the RGB file. We just need the file. It's okay. Because it's never going to print. Some of these singles for some of these artists, they're like second or third singles from an album. Yeah, they're not going to print. They're not going to make a physical copy. They're like, it's fine. Believe me, it's fine. We're just, we might get some radio play off it. We don't need to print 14,000 copies of a piece of vinyl. So, we just kind of, at that moment, it was like the Hello Nasty package was like super elaborate. It was like, it was good. It was a lot of fun working with that. And as a result, I guess I kind of, I don't know, man. I mean, it's like I get charged with these really weird jobs, like, can you make it look like this or can you do that? And it takes a bit of work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And um, I guess those guys thought, well, we have some idea, it's worth a try. Why don't we call Bill? And so I started working on more projects with Adam Yauk and occasional projects for the other guys, but mostly, Adam Yauk at that point was working on, he had, he had some Beastie Boys projects like this concert film he was doing, as well as some other things. And he was beginning a distribution company. Another big project I did for him that I think was like kind of cemented me as like the go-to guy. I think in addition to maybe liking my work, I think they also liked how they could call me at like 11 p.m. or something, which of course I'm going to take the call, right? But I think I was just kind of, I would make myself available when I could. And I think that a trust grew where they could just reach out to me. And we did the packaging and menu design for the Criterion Beastie Boys release, which Adam Yauk was a huge cinema fan, a huge movie fan. And he wanted to release an anthology of their videos. And I think that in his mind, he was like, wouldn't it be great to do it with Criterion? And, at that point, Beastie Boys could kind of call their own shots. They were kind of like superheroes on the world, like they could, I think Adam probably reached out to Criterion, and Criterion was like, that sounds wonderful. And so we ended up working on creating this packaging and artwork for that. And there were just various other projects that I'd get to be part of. And, I've been very lucky to have that relationship with Beastie Boys. They are one of my favorite bands, and to get to work with them, sometimes I wonder if it's even all true. Am I just in a coma somewhere where people think that I made up toy
some
trends?
simulation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
like,
you had a pretty dope run of artists that you did album covers for. I mean, you got Method Man, got DMX, got
yes,
Beastie Boys,
Foxy
Foxy
Brown.
Brown. I mean, dude, those
Yeah.
are all huge, impactful artists on the culture. That's really, really, really dope.
Yeah, and it's weird how several of those artists have just, they're like pillars in the history there. DMX, rest in peace, he just passed. And to be part of that legacy was crazy. That was crazy too. um yeah, I mean, again, I was just kind of there. I mean, I was given the responsibility of coming up with those things. um those things, in a weird way, it's like there's a fantastic, a friend of mine, Joey Garfield, did this big article on the graphic imagery for Beastie Boys. He wrote this, he put together this almost a whole issue for Juxtapose about the packaging design for Beastie Boys. And so he would interview everybody. And one of the people he interviewed was the guy who did the painting for License to Ill. And I remember what that guy, he said something, I don't remember exactly what he said, so I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was such an important quote to me that helped me like frame up my involvement with this. He said, well, the reason my artwork is important is because of the Beastie Boys. Beastie Boys made that artwork important, and so it's the same thing with me. There's a lot of packaging that I did and I was part of, and maybe the artist just didn't click with the public, and so that just has gotten lost in time. And then something like Hello Nasty or the DMX record covers, the first two that I did, those are important to people because DMX was very important to people. I didn't really have a lot to do
Right. I mean,
with
if
why the,
DMX
you know what I'm
sucked,
saying?
if DMX sucked, if if those
It would have
albums
just,
sucked, they would just be
I'm not
it would
even
just
going
be
to
another
talk about
album.
artists that you don't know their graphics,
Right.
because maybe I was part of why it didn't click. I don't know, but
I mean,
I'm just saying I can't take a lot of credit for why DMX or Hello Nasty is such a visual, like it's such a part of that history. I can't, I mean, I worked on it and I did it, but the band and the artist, those are the
100%.
people that, they're the ones that really took it
I
there,
I
and
agree.
so I
But
can,
having a good album cover attached to a good album is a great thing, because
yeah,
if that album is great, every time you look at that album cover, it will associate all those good feelings about that album. It will
yeah.
instantly
I mean,
bring you back before you even press play on it or put it. I mean, that's if you grab tangible albums nowadays.
yeah,
But
of course, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, you just affiliate something with, I mean, I'll tell you, on a very basic DJing level, I miss vinyl, because when I would go DJ, you just turn the record 45 degrees and like tilt it up diagonally in your record crate, and just visually you're like, you just translating what's inside that record sleeve in your head. You're like, okay, that, and I can play that, and I can play that. And now, like, in Serato, I'm just like, man, this list of artists, this just sucks. I mean, there's
yeah,
kind of a there's kind of a version of that I do now, where I organize it by BPM, and so it shows you this random list of stuff that's roughly in the same BPM or the same BPM, and it kind of puts you in that same kind of mode, like, oh, it's not alphabetical, because I don't play artists alphabetically when I'm DJing. And
right.
so that visual cover association, I really miss that. But there's obviously successful DJs. DJ culture has gone to levels way beyond what it ever was when I started DJing. Um, you know, so people don't need those covers while they're DJing. Obviously, A-Track has his mind around his music so much that he's good with those lists and things. But a big part of me learning to DJ was just the album covers and things. And so, plus I don't really DJ that much now. So it's like, it's just kind of step in casually and check it out. And a big list is not very fun to look at. But so you're right, that cover it just gets affiliated with whatever it is. I think we're in a fantastic time. I mean, there's just such great artwork, right now, like, it's just like, I think the visuals are important again, even if it's just for a singular cover image, like, I don't know.
I
Just
think
saying.
everything's come back full circle, right? So some of like the coolest groups, um, especially like in hip hop, like you have like the Griselda guys, right?
Yeah.
Conway the Machine, West Side Gun, and Benny the Butcher, and that whole camp. Those guys, they're releasing like short run vinyl, and the vinyl is super collectible, selling from
Yeah.
hundreds up to thousands of dollars. They do tapes, they do clothing, very artwork heavy. The artwork is a super big important part of
Yeah.
it. Packaging is there,
Yeah.
and then those guys seem to be on a really, really huge level without any kind of like main commercial success. So I think that's cool to see people like that, because it inspires like everyone to kind of be on that tip. Like, okay, now if I want to be official, I need to have a piece of vinyl out. You got like Get On
Yeah.
Down, releasing really dope short run vinyl pieces, from all these artists.
Absolutely, man. Platinum on the streets is how
Yeah,
they used to say it. And I mean, that's actually, I mean, with the commodification of music, with just the product itself is not enough to sustain the type of lifestyle that you need, just to live. You
yeah,
can't make that much money off of streaming music. It's like, you have to create these tangible items. Like, I used to kind of just say, it's flat out as simple as this: you have to create something that you can't download.
yeah.
It's as simple as that. It has to be like a t-shirt. You have to generate merchandise. And of course, this is nothing new. everybody knew this. That's why they created these 360 deals, which were just like fucked up because they ended up like taking a huge amount away. Like somebody a long time ago pointed out to me, they're like, listen, man, Cypress Hill makes more money off their t-shirts because it's frankly just people want to be able to say like, I like cannabis, and those t-shirts mean a lot to people. Cypress Hill at the moment, of course now it's like a different time. It's like, imagine the premise of so many Cheech and Chong movies. They don't make any fucking sense anymore because weed is legal in so many states that it's
Right.
like, you don't need to sit there and be like, there's a cop down the street. What?
It was
Eat it. Like
it was funny because my wife, we were playing the movie Scream for like some of her younger cousins, and there was a scene with the phone, and
right.
was it call waiting or something? It was something like that's completely like obsolete, having to do with a phone, and they had like, this is stupid. They're like, they didn't get it. They thought it was the dumbest thing and made no sense. I wish I could articulate better what it is, but yeah, 100% on that same sentiment. What
No,
you're
these
talking
things do
about.
happen, and it's going to happen again. I'm sorry, all you guys out there, but like something like nobody's going to understand like some of the jokes we talk about now. Like, memes may not be as big as they are now, but yeah, I just think to myself like, all right, things have changed a lot. Like that just doesn't make sense. Like the premise of like trying to get away with selling weed, it's like, that's like what investment bankers are trying to get involved with now. It's legal, like
Facts.
things change. And I don't remember exactly why I was going into this, but
well,
we'll have to rewind this.
we're talking about album art and albums and the significance of tangible.
Oh, sorry, the product of it all. And it's like something like those shirts, Cypress Hill shirts in the 90s was kind of it was a way to kind of say like, yo, I like to get high. I'm on this, like, I'm in this counterculture, and now it's like in California, it's like, yeah, well, I mean, I'll go to the dispensary and pick up like this really intense, expensive strain. What do you think about that? Cool, nice. See you this weekend. All right, I'll bring some CBDs or something, whatever. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
But back in the day, like those shirts, and it still is that way. Shirts obviously mean that much, but it's why somebody like Travis Scott, does this deal with McDonald's, or Fortnite. It's like, these are alternate sources of income. It's like the product itself, the music is like only part of the product now,
Music is now like, I feel like it's more accepted as the marketing tool for,
it's like an accessory, almost,
for whatever it is that you're going to be selling.
Yeah. And absolutely. And I think, there's always a moment where some kids want to have fun by themselves at the house or at a party or at a club. And there's got to be some, the soundtrack to that is very important to them. It's fine. It's bumping, and which is why I kind of am like not really that into Donda right now. I'm like, dude, this is not a fun record to listen to. This is not that much fun to listen to this, but
I did have to get
record, but I'm just saying, like, it's like, I just think kids are probably still going to listen to other stuff.
I ended up buying the stem player. Did you see the stem player?
Oh yeah, I haven't. It's like designed with Teenage Engineering originally, I think.
I don't know who designed. I don't, honestly, I just saw it and I bought it because I was under the impression, and I may be wrong, that you could kind of remix the album with the stems. You can play the stems in different orders and stuff like that. I thought that was super dope. I think as far as merch is concerned, I wish it was associated with an album with better stems that I like better. But
yeah, exactly. Like, where are the beats?
Yeah. Where are the
like,
drums?
I'm like, are there any hi-hats on Donda? I mean, I came up with this theory that I think Kanye West, like serious music that he's working on has no hi-hats, and then for bangers he puts hi-hats on it. It's not totally true. There are hi-hats on Donda, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's like, dude, there's nothing's like slotting. I just think about that Tom Petty single from the 90s where it was like the lyric is something like like he didn't hear a single or something, you know. I don't think Kanye West needs singles at this point because he's created this entire thing, you know, around, like we're talking about, like these alternate products. He'll probably put out like a Donda collection and kids will buy the shirts. It's fine. You know, he's got his
Oh, he
shoes,
already
he's got
did.
his
I
clothes.
think, didn't he
Yeah.
team up with
That,
not
that's true.
Givenchy, but like one of these big designers is printing up the t-shirts.
Right.
You know,
And that's true. The listening parties had their shirts too. Like
yeah. Like, I
Atlanta,
mean, like
Mercedes had
what
theirs.
was it? I forgot where I read it. Or maybe it was Breakfast Club said, you know, one of the Donda listening parties generated $12 million. You know,
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's insane. So it's like, does it even matter how good the music is?
No,
Because
I believe me, it's an experience.
it
It
is.
is an
Yeah.
experience. He's brought an experience, and I'm a big Kanye West fan from back before he was a signed artist. You know, when in the industry people were talking about this kid, you know, and he was producing tracks, and you know, then he got his chain. You know, he's on the rock. You know, and I just feel like I'm a huge fan, but I'm not a fan of him right now. I don't need to hear
do you
this much
think?
about God and stuff. You
Do
know,
you
I'm not
think?
mad at him, but I'm just saying it's not for me necessarily. You
Do
know?
you think that like I didn't really like Jesus is King. I didn't listen to that project.
No, what is that about? I don't need to hear that.
And
Plus, it's disingenuous, bro. The last time you were on the radio was the hook was you're such a fucking hoe. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, come on, man. And you
I
know,
like
just
I like Donda better, but
okay, that's true. Yeah, I do too. Of course.
but do
Yeah.
you think that like this is one of those projects? Because I remember, and I use this a lot, this comparison, at least for me, when Wu-Tang was releasing a shit ton of albums and artists and some of the, you know, side groups, little groups, this, that, the other would release projects. I'd be like, this ain't that good. Or then I would go back like 2-3 years later and listen to it with a fresh set of ears. I'm like, yo, this is actually pretty fucking
You're
dope.
like,
Like,
actually, yeah, like Gravedigger's kind of hot.
yeah.
Or
Well,
something
no,
like
well,
that.
Gravedigger's first album that was hot from jump.
That was hot from the go. I didn't
Yeah.
need 2 or 3 years for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah. But
got
like
you.
I think going back and listening to like maybe Inspector Deck's first album or you know, one of somebody, I don't know, off the top, but like
I know what you're saying. It was
yeah.
almost, it's like too much. It's like a little blinding. It's like, dude, it's just too much. And then as you're able to like parse it together and take it in, you know, and especially as you get older, you like, bro, the flood of like Wu-Tang stuff. This is like, you know, like, is this all good? I don't know. And honestly, it's like those records were packed with, it's the same thing. I got to say, like right now we're going through this big, like, you know, certified lover boy versus Donda week. And it's like, yo, man, both those albums should have been like 55 minutes long. You don't need to hit me with like an hour and 30 minutes, an hour and 49 minutes. Fuck you guys, man. Especially when like on Donda, it's like part two, part two, part two. Like, just stop.
Yeah.
I'd be a lot
it is a bit
happier if I
much.
just was able to like take, you know, and what happened to this whole idea of like, you know, of like Yay, right? You know, like what happened to like making the 21-minute EP style album, you know what I mean? Like, so listen, I'm not mad at these guys, but I'm just saying it's a lot. And I know what you're saying. It's like too much to take in. And of course, right now we're going through a phase where everybody wants to be able to be like, yo, shit is mid. You know, you want to say that right away. Like somebody puts up a post and you want to comment right away, yo, shit is whack. You know, you want to have your opinion out there. People just want to voice their thoughts on it. These things are going to take a little time to digest, you know, and it's the same thing you're saying. Like maybe in a few years, I'll revisit Donna and be like, damn, man, there's a lot here.
Because I felt like when I first heard Yeezus, I was just like, you know, okay. But then I went back and listened to them, like, yo, this is actually really fucking dope.
Man, I was a fan from the get-go.
But
that record's insane. I'm a big fan of that. And I feel like if you didn't get into it at the moment, it might have missed like the context of it, you know, like when it came out and it was like, whoa, what? You know, it was like actually kind of the beginning of where we're at now.
I have a
Kanye
very
West.
broad taste in music, as I could tell you do, you know, like Depeche Mode, you know, Joy Division to like all the 90s grunge stuff, and then the trip hop stuff with Tricky, Portishead, Massive Attack, Shadow,
Yeah,
all that stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, like all the James Lavelle, like
Yes,
Moax, everything. Right.
all that whole
Ninja Tune.
Ninja Tunes,
Yes.
yep, that whole vibe. So it's not hard for me to like something like Yeezus. I just think I wanted
Right.
something more like Kanye, and he's just
Right.
he's always on another level with his shit. He's like 50 steps ahead, and he showed us that he's 50 steps ahead. When he released the first Yeezy sneaker, everybody talked shit about it, but it became such a huge fucking thing. I talk shit about it, and then I ended up with a pair. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I
So
know what you mean. And then now it's like, well, now we got to do sneaker collabs. Everybody, artists are just thinking like, well, I got to do a sneaker with someone now. I'm sure. You know what I
yeah,
mean? People are like on board with that. And of course, Run DMC had their deal with Adidas, but you know, every I always have this thing like people will approach me and they'll be like, "How can you still be into hip hop? It's such garbage right now." And I'm like, "Oh, I mean, man, I just feel like hip hop is perpetually 17 years old. And so there's going to be some stuff that's new to every generation. And yeah, sure, Run DMC did a sneaker in the late 80s. Run DMC was signed to Adidas. First contract with a non-athletic entity, I think, I think that's what Run DMC was. I think they were the first non-athletes to have a sponsorship from Adidas. And and so an old guy like me can remember that. But for a kid who's like, yo, Kanye did sneakers first, I understand where they're coming from when they say that. They don't necessarily need to know what happened in the 80s. Of course, it's nice if they do. But I'm just saying, I understand when people just attribute stuff to certain people, even though if you've been around long enough, you've probably seen it before. I just realized like I probably like geeking out on Star Wars in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. There were probably some like 40, 50-year-old film fans that were like, this Star Wars thing is such nonsense. It's just a repeat of like these Flash Gordon things we had in the 50s and blah, 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 and it's like,
I
oh,
think I
shut
think
up,
every
old man,
generation,
of
yeah,
course,
every generation
and
has
so
something like that.
I'm open to like understanding that. So I don't really go on and on about it, even though I am right now. But I mean, I guess I'm saying like, I saw a few Yeezus shows and it was insane. I mean, it seems, again, it's a little bit like we were talking about earlier with the camouflage Eames chair. Like, yeah, so what? Modernica did a collab with Bape. There's camo on the Eames chair. But like 10 years earlier, there wasn't.
Right.
When I did it, it was like, are you kidding me? Like, nobody would paint their Eames chair, I mean, I didn't even actually, I just did it graphically. I'm just saying like, um, the whole idea of like the Versace masks and just the approach and the music itself, people were like having a real difficult time with Yeezus. And even the concerts themselves, like he would do like a medley of hits towards the end. The only song that really got its own shine from like pre-Yeezus era was Can't Tell Me Nothing. Because I think the mindset of Can't Tell Me Nothing still made sense within the construct of Yeezus.
Right.
Like it still held up. And that was one of the only songs that he performed in full outside of this crazy medley where he just like bumped from one chorus to a verse to the next, But the best thing about those shows, the two that I saw, was that he would just stop and start rambling about some stuff, like some dispute with Nike and how, like they wouldn't release the Red Octobers and, how he got approached by someone to be, to perform at their bat mitzvah for their daughter and just all this stuff. Like he would go on about these things. He'd be like, yo, cut the music. And he'd just go on a tirade. Dude, this is the craziest part. On half of these things he'd say in his tirade, he'd be like, yo, they want me to perform at their bat mitzvah. They'd be like, yeah, that'd be the shit. That'd be the shit. It'd go through auto-tune. Half of his tirade would go through auto-tune. It was like, I was like, yo, this is some really weird shit. I feel like I'm seeing a preacher in the year like 2035 or something. Like, can you, I mean, dude, we're right on the cusp of that. Somebody's probably already doing it, like delivering their sermon through autotune. You know what I mean? Like, why not? It's gonna happen. And he was doing that. And I was like, this is so nuts, you know, and then he'd be like, he would have, I don't remember who was with him on tour. I don't think it was Hudson Mohawk. I think it was like I don't remember who it was, but he was kind of like helming up the keyboards off to the side. You know, he had a little like pod of keyboards and things where he'd be like, yo, just put the pad down, and he'd be playing a musical pad. You know, like, you know what a pad is on a synthesizer. Just like, you know, like a breathy, non-percussive, you know, ethereal pad. And he's ranting about Nike and how the president of American Express doesn't want to do this and how they want to do that. And you got to like,
but I love that
marginalized.
I love that. I love that because I think you could probably relate being an artist and having to deal with these type of people. Like, nothing you say matters to them, right?
Yeah.
It's like at the end of the day, they're gonna call the shots, do whatever they want, you know.
Yeah.
They're like, fuck you, Kanye. You know, we're Nike. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And then what can he say? So all he, you know, his passion to want to do that, and like, you know, dude, I thought that was awesome. I always thought those were awesome. I love
that. Those are like the real special moments. Believe me, there were people in the audience around me that were restless and disappointed. And they just wanted to kind of hear some music. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is the really unique experience.
Yeah. Be there for the moment.
This is the moment that is different from any other concert. He might do this at some other concerts, but these things he's saying right now, this emotion, this is real. This is crazy. This is better than hearing like, you know, whatever, Good
Gold
Life,
Digger,
whatever, you know what I mean?
Whatever.
Yeah. Like this is insane. And I got to look back and see if I can find some videos of those things, because it was so weird, man. It was so weird. And so that moment, that Jesus moment, was way beyond like anything. You could tell there was like a total evolution there. And because it was so arrogant, because like the single, you know, I am a God and all this stuff, you know, where's my damn croissant? That sort of extreme attitude, it was a lot for people to take in. And I think it's like what you're saying about, you know, like some of those Wu-Tang records is like, I only really know the singles because I just didn't have it in me to like, it's almost, you know, and it's weird. I do it now still. Somebody will be like my favorite artist, and then something will click, and then like, I don't even check for their next album or something. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even, or people that are like my favorite artists, I don't follow them on Instagram even, because there's something different about the experience. It's too much. Like I don't need to have you posting up. Like I don't need to have your assistant put up.
I had to, a lot of those cats, my favorite artists, I had to unfollow recently. I just, when they start, I'm like, I don't even want to hear it. You know, like they'll start bringing in opinions of things, and I'm like, bro, why are you not wearing a fucking tin hat? All right, I'm done with you. Like unfollow.
I know.
You know,
believe me. Yeah, I know, man. It's too much. It's like you learn too much about these things. There was this pretty fantastic meme going around, right? It was like a tweet. Some people were reposting this tweet, and the tweet was, yo, we didn't hang last year because of the pandemic. And I'm not hanging with you this year because of what you posted during the pandemic. You know, where it was like, you just revealed too much, man. I mean, myself, I am like a vaccinated, mask-wearing believer. And there's some people in, you know, that I know that are not. And it breaks my heart because I'm worried about them, you know. They're probably saying the same thing about me, and I understand that. I do. I understand.
But here's the difference, right? Here's the difference.
400,000 scientists. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But dude, here's the difference, right? One belief system can get you killed. The other one, if you're wrong, at the very worst, will probably make you look like a fool. And you know what? I've looked like a
I'm
fool
right there.
through so much of my life. Add another one on there. I'll be the fool. Who gives a fuck? I'll be
Yeah,
alive.
it's fine. I don't care. Yo, man, let me tell you, man, like I've been traveling to Japan since the mid 90s, and
Yeah.
it's very common for someone over there to wear a mask as they go out in public. If they have a cold, they wear a mask because they just are, there's more of a consideration for community out there. And I mean, I think that's part of what makes America pretty awesome as well, is just this kind of like, yo, I've got to do this. I'm not worried about what these people think. I got to do this. And that can sometimes translate into like, you're a pussy for wearing a mask. You know what I mean? And it's like, ugh, all right. So yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, I've taken some heat for wearing a mask, but I'm like, yo, that's just the way it is. Listen, man, I see a lot of people throw out this like 99% survivability thing. Some of those people I see saying it, I'm like, you're not as high up as you think you are. You're not as close to 99% as you think you are.
And here's the thing, right? They say that it is inevitable that everyone on this planet will eventually contract it. So that 99.9% is 99.9% or 0.1% of 8 billion people. Okay. That's a big fucking, that 0.1% is a lot. Your chance is very, very slim under that percentile,
I know, man. I know. It's like people do get struck by lightning,
Yeah.
That's why we know what happened. Yeah. No, I mean, hey, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And so I feel like, there's a lot out there that you see and you're kind of like, I don't know, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And going back to our discussion, I feel like the whole Yeezus thing was at this moment where Kanye West was making a direction change in his life and his career. And just, I think it just was a lot for people. And they were like, I don't know. I was a big fan right away. I got teased by a lot of friends. They were like, well, Bound is okay. And I'm like, Bound is a problematic single on the record. It doesn't sound like the rest of the record. I'm kind of like, I don't want to hear Bound. I mean, it's cool. It's a great song, but I'm like, it's definitely out of sync with the rest of the record in a weird way. And I was just like, this record is crazy. It really grew on me. I really love that record. I go to the mat for that record. I'm just saying.
No, it's a good record. I'm going to agree with you. I wasn't on it right away. It took me a minute to get on it, but I wanted to ask you one thing. I know we've been on here for a while. I don't want to kill too much of your time, but
I'm sorry, man. I love to talk about this stuff. So,
me too. Me too. So I didn't want to.
This is just like a conversation.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I didn't want to.
So I'm in no rush. I'm saying. Okay. You're good. You're good.
So I have a little dry erase board here, and I wrote a couple things. One of them specific, the Beastie Boys toys, right? They were, you know what I'm talking about? The
Medicom, the like Nego put them out with Bathing Ape with Medicom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those were like Hello Nasty, right? Figures, right? They were in this sardine can.
Yeah, it's like a tin. It's a tin container, a tin box that looks like a sardine can.
That's one that
I have one. It's actually parts of it are kind of rusted even. I'm like, what am I supposed to do about this? And then the figures themselves are dressed to look like the cover of the record. It comes with alternate outfits, like the white outfits from Intergalactic Video, the kind of Japan, Tokyo street worker outfits.
There was that particular figure. Well, that's like on my list of grails. I see them on eBay every once in a blue, but like, $1,500 is just a pretty penny to drop on.
It is
on something. There is the Sasquatch figure. Have you ever seen that? Have you heard of that?
No, but I know that they made the video for Check It Out, I think. Check It Out was the other one. Sorry, that was for the single off of Hot Sauce Committee. Where they kind of had this running gag of like the Sasquatch going through like To the Five Boroughs videos or something. I don't have that.
They
I
did
don't
a
have
Sasquatch figure. There's like 70, I think, or 50 or 70 of them in existence. It was very
Wow.
small. I think like maybe family and friends or something of that nature got that.
Yeah, man. I wish that I'd been close at that moment, but yeah, it's funny. Those guys know I'm into that stuff. And so sometimes they'll just give me a bunch of things that maybe they're actually a little bit over. Like people will give them a bunch of stuff and they'll end up with boxes of stuff and they'll just kind of pass it on to me. That's happened a few times. I don't have the Sasquatch figure though, but that sounds kind of hot.
What about the Beastie Boys floppy disk?
A
There was
floppy disk.
they did a floppy disk that they were giving away at events that you can go onto their website, and I think you had access to like some of the magazines that they were putting out.
Interesting. Would this be like kind of 90s era type thing?
Yeah.
I guess so, right? Yeah. Well, they were working quite a bit with this guy, Ian Rogers, who now at the moment he's working at what is it? It's like kind of a cold storage, like crypto thing. It's a company that they do like cold storage wallets for
Mhm.
crypto. But Ian, back in the day, used to work at a long time ago. He worked with Steve Jobs' company Next, and then he was really early on internet stuff and worked with Beastie Boys to develop their. They were one of the first bands to have a really. They might have been the first band. I'm not sure, but they were really early on to having like a message board, like a
Yeah.
BBS type thing. And I think that they saw how important that was shaping up to be through the 90s. And I think that I'm not familiar with that exact project, but I imagine it probably, from what you're saying, it probably had a little bit to do with like Ian's involvement as well as like the Grand Royal magazine stuff. I
Yes.
mean, they had a little empire going on there in the 90s. Like Mike D was pretty into like working on like X large clothing and the Grand Royal
Do they
magazine.
still
And of
have
course,
a? Do they still have something to do with the clothing with extra large
I
clothing?
don't think so. I think the brand has yeah, I think that was
It still
their
exists. The
I
brand.
think one of their yes, it does, especially like in Japan, like X Girl and X Large are pretty I think they're definitely existing brands over there, but I think they might just be like licensed and they're being done in the spirit of the original. And there's, it's kind of indiscernible from the original. So I think it's legit, but I don't believe like Mike D or Eli Bonners are involved any longer. I don't think they have anything to do with it at this point. Maybe there's some licensing thing that they in perpetuation, that sounds
Yeah.
like something Mike D might be smart enough to have figured out, like, well, I'll be, I'll take licensing in perpetuation. That sounds like a very smart move. But yeah, man, I'm not familiar with those. I don't have any insight on those, I'm afraid.
Well, now they're on your radar.
I'll look them up. I'll look them up.
You have a
Something I'm
new.
always looking for is like apparently like I haven't seen it in person, but in Japan there was a mini disc released of the Hello Nasty album, and I'm like, damn, I want to get that.
That's
So
dope.
if
That's
any of
dope.
your viewers like,
I had a mini
let
disc
me,
when they
let
first
me,
came out. I remember that. Had a little mini disc
uh,
Walkman. Was able to record into
yeah,
it. Recorded
yeah.
a bunch of DJ mixes into it when I was DJing.
Oh man, I still have a this thing. I'm just gonna hold on till it breaks. It's a mini disc player with a CD player built into it, and it's made by Sony. And you can dub your CD onto a mini disc in
So
double
dope.
time, like 2 times. It'll transfer it digitally onto the mini disc, and it's like I had that. That thing was awesome, man. I love that thing. But yeah, I also used to make mixes and record stuff on the mini disc. I really loved that thing. Then the iPod came out and it was like, whatever.
Yeah,
It's all done now. You
iPod
know,
was yeah, it's
that
crazy. The you have a book coming up. We're right around the
I
corner
do
from
actually. I do. And
September 11th, right?
man, thank you for mentioning that. I do. too. I appreciate, because I kind of got so caught up in 90s nostalgia. I forgot to mention, this is the book right here. This is it's called Twin Towers. I think I don't know if it's reversed on your end,
No,
but
but I see it.
it's called Twin Towers, the World Trade Center in Cinema, 1971 to 2002.
So
And what I did here, Lex, is I just kind of got into this weird idea that I was going to go through and find the Twin Towers in, sorry, the lighting's a little bleak here. Let me try to improve that a little bit.
okay. Because I wanted to ask you specifics about that, which I'm pretty sure you're probably going to answer it anyway in your explanation. But
Okay.
So this is a book of screenshots of movies that had
Yeah.
the Twin Towers in them.
Yeah.
And
so the Twin Towers showing up in films,
how many of
it was
those,
in hundreds, they were in hundreds of movies.
but how many of those
but
movies, did you know by heart? I gotta pull it out of this movie.
Well, I thought I knew more. I'll say that. When I started the project, a friend of mine has a print shop here in San Diego, and he did this project for somebody completely unrelated to this. It was not even cool. It was just like some nursing booklet or something. It was like 40 pages. He did like a perfect bind, which is like kind of magazine bind, like Wired magazine. He was like, dude, we got to do a zine or something. We got to do something. I was like, I don't have any ideas. I'll think of something though. That's dope. Anyway, a few months went by, and I'm a big movie buff, so I'm just always burning through movies, checking stuff out. And it was like 10 a.m. one morning, and I'm just like watching something. I'm watching this kind of weird 80s movie called Maniac Cop. It's like kind of a thriller about a killer cop in New York City or something. Totally not what I want to watch at like 10:15 in the morning. But I just think I'll just check it out a little bit, and I'm realizing like, you know what, I'm too impatient for this right now. I got stuff I got to do. I can't watch this whole thing. So I watched about 10 minutes, and during the opening credits, there was an image of the Twin Towers. And as somebody that, lived in New York when that happened, when the Twin Towers were destroyed, I mean, I went through like a whole decade of like, kind of like, oh, there they are in a movie, or something, or on TV, or a picture of them. I would just kind of make a little sound out loud, like, oh, like, oh, respect to those things, oh, and so I still am that way when I see them in movies. And sure enough, here in the titles for Maniac Cop, Twin Towers, and I'm like, oh wow, Twin Towers. Man, I just wasn't thinking about it. And then I watched a little bit of the movie, about 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, this is like building. I don't want to watch this. So I switched over and I started watching Black Rain, the Ridley Scott film with Michael Douglas. And I had not watched Black Rain in a really long time. Incidentally, Black Rain, I kind of realized upon this watching that day, it's like the third in a trilogy of movies from that era in Ridley Scott's career, where it was like, everything was like rooms are filled with smoke. If you like the look of Blade Runner or Alien, Black Rain is like the last film before he stopped doing that as much, I think. It's like, I mean, there's a few others, but though I'm just saying, like, I was amazed at how much Black Rain actually had in common with Blade Runner if you watch it again. But also during the opening credits, Michael Douglas is riding his motorcycle across what is probably the Manhattan Bridge, and Twin Towers are in the background. So these two images were shown to me like within about 5 minutes of each other. And I was like, you know what? I think I just came up with an idea for this zine. I'm going to try to like capture movies. I'll do screen grabs of Twin Towers in movies. This is dope.
That is pretty dope.
I'm going to start making a list. So I called up my friend Vaughn, who was also really into movies. I'm like, dude, I came up with this idea. If you see Twin Towers in a movie, like, let me know. I'm going to just start writing down movies. And I think I could think of I felt like I knew like 50. I probably knew about 7, like, I mean, of course, it's obvious when someone points it out to you that it's in there, and and so I was started watching New York films and just kind of burning through it. It's a little hard because they're often used as establishing shots for like, hey, we're in New York City.
Right.
And so establishing shots usually only last like,
I'm thinking of 3 movies right now.
okay,
Can you
I was
tell
just
me?
going to say quickly, these
Okay.
establishing shots, they're only like 3 or 4 seconds and then they're gone. And so zipping through a movie, you can miss them. I was like, God, this is going to take a lot of work, a lot of work. So let's see, which 3 movies can you think of?
Boomerang.
Oh, it's in there. It's in the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Ghostbusters.
that's in the book as well.
How
Yes.
about Coming to America?
All right. There's Boomerang.
That's funny. And let me tell you
um,
something. I've only seen Boomerang once when it came out, and I don't know why that came to my mind right now, but
right.
it did. Those are 3 I could think of off top. I'm sure there's probably more. Maybe More
Well,
Money, More Problems.
that's in there as well.
Okay.
Um, yeah. That's actually a great one, man, because it's like it's that has Bernie Mac and Bill what's his name? I've forgotten the actor's name. They both passed away. And so to have like, oh, Mo Money, More Problems. Sorry, you're thinking Mo Better Blues?
No,
Are you thinking
I was
Mo Money, More Problems?
with Damon
That I'm
Wayans.
not. Oh, with the Damon Wayans. Yeah, sorry, I'm not familiar with. I don't know if that one's not in here,
Okay.
but I don't know. I that would have been a good one. I should have maybe looked that one up. Um, Here's what happened, man. I started like doing research on the web because it was just, dude, it was just like you think you know more about this than you really do. It's very hard to just remember what movies have a shot of the Twin Towers. You're thinking like classics like, oh, Warriors and stuff. No, you know what I mean?
No.
And so it just becomes kind of a hit and miss type idea. Like, well, it's set in New York, but maybe they didn't have any Twin Towers. So I started doing some research online. It turns out there were like on YouTube, there were a few videos, these little like 5-minute videos where people had like some guy had found like 10 movies and he'd make like a little quick super edit of like Twin Towers in movies, and
So
it'd be like
random.
7 or 8 movies. So I'm like, oh, this is a start. And pretty soon I had a list of like 30 movies. I'm like, okay. So I started renting movies. I had some of them in my collection. And it's still, dude, not really enough to really base a whole book off of, right? So it turns out it's crazy. It's crazy. The Wikipedia page has a list of all the movies. And so I was like, yo, it turns out the Twin Towers they estimate like over 750 movies.
Jeez.
Well, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to go through 750 movies. So I ended up, the book has 250 images in it that it's kind of curated from what I think are kind of significant or important movies, fun things to look at. It's kind of funny because some movies like Wall Street will have the Twin Towers in them like 5 times, 7 times, just amazing shots. And I ended up, what happened was I would end up picking out a shot that was like more interesting rather than a really great technical image of the Twin Towers, because those actually started to get a little redundant, a little boring, like just really clean shots of the Twin Towers at around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. There's a lot of those. But there's not, sometimes the movies offer something very unique. Like for instance, Wall Street. I don't know exactly where it is in the book right now. I'd show you, I'll continue to look, but it's like, it's basically the one that I included is a close-up, not a close-up, but a really long lens shot of the Twin Towers with the title over it, like directed by Oliver Stone. And so it's Wall Street. You're just like, damn, whereas there's some other shots that are like better shots of the Twin Towers, but they don't say Oliver Stone in the title.
Right.
My favorite ones are the titles, like New Jack
Yes.
City, or This Is Sleepless in Seattle, I believe. And, or You've Got Mail. I don't know. Believe me, I knew them inside and out about 6 months ago. Now I'm kind of like, this is kind of a funny one. This is from It's from the closing credits to Working Girl, the Melanie Griffith film.
Oh, I remember that movie.
But it's like before the titles roll, it's like a long shot of New York with the Twin Towers. And frankly, it's like, I've got enough shots like that. That's not interesting. So to have the music credits for I'm So Excited by the Pointer Sisters, that's like super dope to me. I love that. Like those are the more interesting ones, you know. But yeah, I ended up realizing I didn't really know like a lot of the films. I had to go back through and, you know, I learned quite a bit about it, you know. And it's funny, some of the movies that they show up in, they're not even, you know, there's like, I have the movie Snatch in there because there's a picture of the Twin Towers in the guy's office, you know. And that's just kind of a weird little nod to like, oh, it's, you know, that counts too, you know.
I was gonna think that picture from Snatch is that during the sequence where he talks about booking a flight to New York and it's just a very quick chop, like drink water, airplane. You know what I'm talking about?
Remember. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like this, like,
yep.
Yeah, it's like kind of very Guy Ritchie type. I think it's from it's from a moment where the one actor who he's a fantastic character actor. I don't remember his name, but he's got kind of like this gray wavy hair, kind of always kind of plays like a maid guy, right?
Is it Benicio del Toro?
Standing up from, pardon me, what?
Is it not Benicio del Toro, right?
No, but he does kind of have that sort of look. It's not Benicio del Toro, but it's like he's not as famous as that dude, but he's a fantastic actor. I'm gonna see if I can find it for you in here.
Italian dude, right? Or he plays.
Yeah. And he's kind of like yeah. You know, and he's in Snatch, obviously.
Not Cousin Avi. He talks about Cousin Avi.
Yeah, I don't remember the character. I mean, I got to be honest with you, man. It's been a while since I watched Snatch. Even when I went and located the thing in here, I was just burning through it with no audio, which is hard to do because that's a great movie.
I got a funny story about the guy who plays Bullet to Tony. What the fuck is that guy's name? He's based that character is based on a real gangster in the UK. Oh my God, I can't. Courtney,
should we look it up?
Courtney, Dave Courtney. He's
Okay.
based on a character named Dave Courtney. I believe the Dead Kennedys even wrote a song about Dave Courtney, and Dave Courtney was a Shylock in real life, and the mob in England would hire him to collect money, and he was infamous for having solid gold brass knuckles with diamonds in them and a plethora of guns. So this record behind me, I had a hit record in the UK in around 2010, and nice. I ended up living on my friend's couch in Brixton, and one night I was sleeping on the couch, and at like 2 a.m, I was in the living room, and the living room actually had a door between the kitchen and the dining room. I was just like there, and I hear a knock on the door, and I'm just like, yeah, come in. Okay. Yeah. I'm in my boxers, right? My roommate comes in, and right behind him is Dave Courtney. And behind Dave Courtney is his 13-year-old daughter who loves the song. And apparently he was bragging to him that the song came up while they were in the car, so going somewhere. And he's like, oh, that's my roommate. He's living on my couch right now. He shows up to my house, and he has the brass knuckles with him. He asks to take a picture. He pulls out the brass knuckles, like holds them to my face. That's not even the crazy part. Later on, I find out who he is and everything like that. Go to this guy's house. Now, if you've been to London, right? London is extremely congested, and any residential area, like all the houses are always fucking connected. This guy is on a block where all the houses are connected, except his house is the only house that is not connected to anything. And on the side of his house, he has a huge portrait of like King George and like the Knights of the Round Table, but it's not King George, it's him, his head on King George's body. And then all the King Arthur, I don't know, one of those guys, and all the knights are his posse, right? And it's painted on the side of his house in a residential neighborhood. He has a sex dungeon in another building that is like behind the house. It's not like a shed. It's like a little, I don't know what it is, but it's an actual sex torture dungeon. And he has these medieval weird fucking things in there. We shot a music video at his house, and his house is like a oddities house, super crazy. The guy turned out to be like super cool, but like kind of like super scary, like
Yeah, like
don't fuck with this guy. But it was pretty
yeah.
funny. Oh, Vinny Jones played Dave Courtney, and
Oh, nice. Okay.
originally Dave Courtney was supposed to play Dave Courtney, but I guess the government or something got involved, and they said, we will not let you put this movie out if you
Right. You
have.
can't profit, like a criminal can't profit from, that's probably
Yeah,
like, I imagine that's a law here in the US. It's probably based on something over there that you can't really profit from a crime that you, yeah, they probably were like, no, come on.
so
That's too much.
when
You're flaunting that. Yeah.
when
The
I went to
portrait
find
on the
out,
side, the King Arthur portrait on the side
bro,
of the building.
insane.
We're giving you that. But you in a
Insane.
movie playing yourself, we're not gonna, yeah.
And we had a Puma, we were endorsed by Puma, and Puma sent like 3 boxes of like sneakers and clothes for us to wear during the video shoot. And one of the boxes went missing. I didn't even ask. I was just like,
Yeah.
he could have them. That's cool. He
Yeah,
let me shoot. He
that's
let me
fine.
shoot a music video in a sex dungeon. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I'm good. You're like, I've never been on the receiving end of a box. I've never been on the box falling off the truck end of things. I've never been the truck in that situation. Okay,
Yeah,
well, all right,
exactly.
I guess, yeah. Man, I know it's oh man, I mean, and why are we so fascinated with those stories, right? I mean, I just have been burning through the show Mr. In Between. Have you watched that?
No.
Fantastic, man. It's fantastic. It's like if you ever wanted to watch a show about Mike from Breaking Bad,
Yes.
that's what the show is. Mr. In Between. It's like this Australian show. It's phenomenal. So
I gotta
check
check
that
it out.
out. But yeah, I mean, just to finish up about this book, man, it's just like some weird kind of project. I just decided I had to see it through, And I ended up just finding, all these films that I could. There's some that I missed that I kind of regret a little bit, that I found out later or whatever, I saw later. But it's pretty well represented, and it's a lot of fun to look through. There's an index in the back of all the films. Like, sorry, it's a little blown out there, but yeah, like the films are all indexed in the back. There's no titles on the inside pages. So it's kind of fun to look through and try to guess which films are which. And, Ghostbusters is in there. You can identify it by the Ecto-1 is cruising across the
Nice.
bridge in the photo, very small, very subtle. It's a book that I made it with the N53 gallery, which is like some friends that have a gallery out in like East Hampton, out in the Hampton, or Montauk rather, and they were really enthusiastic about the project. My friends Philip and Weiss. Philip Leeds from Billionaire Boys Club. I don't know if you know Philip, but
Not personally,
he's always up for some project, and he saw the promise of it right away. He's like, we gotta work on this. So they print books and editions, and he was like, I think this could be a sick book. And I was like, I was finished with the book, but I just didn't really have anywhere for it to go.
Yeah.
It was too big of a project for my friend down. By the time I was done with it, it was like hundreds more images than I thought. And it was going to be a lot more than just making a zine at my friend's print shop. So we were like, I don't know what to do with that thing. So it sat on my hard drive for like a year. And, we ended up printing this book over in the UK. It's a nice little thing. It's available for pre-order now. If you check out my Instagram, Billions, I'm doing some book signing parties this month in September, and it's going to be available at some bookstores.
Are you coming down to Florida?
I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? You got any cool bookstores down there that you like? It's not on Amazon or anything. It's like a book fair style book,
Not bookstores, but I did hook up. Are you familiar with Rude Jude from
Sorry, there's some sort of crazy motorcycle just tore down the street. Am I familiar with what?
Rude Jude. Have you ever heard of the DJ Rude Jude on Shade 45? He used to be on the Jenny Jones show back in the day. He
No,
was
but
always
I recognize all the
he's
accoutrement you're talking about.
he's
Yeah,
a
but
cool anyway, cool dude. He did a book, and I hooked him up with somebody I know in Miami at like a pretty like well-known like sneaker store, and he did like a book
nice,
signing there. So like I mean, if you need a
cool.
venue per se in Miami, I got a few places that I could help you out with. They
I
might
like
they
it. Well, I
won't
mean,
be
there's
bookstores per se, but they could be a record
no,
store
but you
or
know,
something of that
it's a
nature.
weird book. It's a weird book that would probably actually touch base with more people at a sneaker store than it
Yeah.
might at a bookstore. You know what I mean? Because it's just strictly like movies, and it's a book, but it's not like I wrote like a murder mystery or something. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
that
yeah.
clever. It's not
Yeah,
that
well, I
clever.
mean,
It's just a bunch of it's a fun book though, man. But I'm open to a shop carrying a few if they want to get involved. If you're watching this and you're thinking that would work in my shop, reach out to us. Um, it's you know, like I said, they're available for pre-order now, and they're going to just be available for a while. There's not really that many of them made. It's pretty low run, and it's just kind of for the movie buffs. So, but that's
it's
been my
super dope.
project.
It's
That's been my
super dope.
project this month, man. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. It's good to actually see it come to fruition because it's been a couple of years since I started it, and it's like
So
I don't
let
know,
me,
man.
as an artist, what
Yes.
would you say is more fulfilling, creating the art or seeing it manifest itself in whatever the tangible physical thing is?
Well, I don't know. I just when I used to do those album covers, it was at a moment when there were record stores, right? So there were a couple of Virgin mega stores in New York as well as Tower Records up in Times Square. And when I would do those records, like they would make big graphics that would go outside the store. And sometimes those things had to be hand painted by people. And that was like my favorite thing to see. Like I remember I drove to this place one time, just to see this thing. And then some other people sent me these images where people had repainted the Method Man cover. And it's just so bugged out that some poor kids had to like paint, and they had to
Right.
make the font exactly like I had made it in Photoshop. I'd mangled it in Photoshop, and they had to like redo it. And hopefully they had fun doing that. But I'm just saying, so I like to see those products out there in the wild. But a lot of the stuff I've been involved in, it's not really like that anymore. It's not so exciting to just see the thing on your phone. It's like, okay, cool, whatever. It's fun when it's actually out there in the wild. Doing the project, of course, as anybody creative knows, it's really fun to just work and build on those projects, working on a song or working on a graphic or a t-shirt, you know. Um, but it's also a big part of it when it gets recognized by others as being fun or important or like significant to them. That's great. I mean, I have this thing where like with the book, like now is when I really have to start promoting it, but I'm like almost kind of spent, like I'm kind of over it, like, oh yeah, well, I mean, it's here, right? I mean, I did it, but now is when I really have to talk to people about it and push it so it doesn't just sit there on the shelves,
Right.
but I'm kind of onto something else right now, and so I'm like, oh, I got to revisit the book. Gotta do that. So in one way, subconsciously, I'm kind of like, books out, and then I have to like kind of fight myself to just keep promoting it and stuff, as proud of it as I am, even,
Right. But that's the
So
artist in you. Like you did it, like you're ready on
yeah,
to the
I'm
next.
kind of, and it's funny because I sound like, oh, I'm done, I'm moving on. And yet I'm still talking about old stuff that I did in the 90s. Of course, I'm not I'm not totally over everything that I've done. They're all they're all like small bricks in this wall that I'm building, whatever, So I'm proud of them all, and I like to talk about them, but I also like to look forward to like other new projects, and just the hope that maybe that'll be like another, a hit or something fun, just to, I don't even need to, I'm not trying to, you know, I just want to make stuff that can sustain the process of making more stuff. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily get upset when something doesn't sell really well or something. As long as I can make money back on it, or, like, for instance, this gallery, I want the books to do well, so the gallery feels glad that they were involved, like I don't want them to be stuck with a bunch of books like, oops, that was a mistake. But,
Right.
So, these things, a good friend of mine was, I don't really want to blow up his spot, so I'm not going to mention his name, but he was talking about how important it is to sell stuff through the gallery, so, to have his works sell through the gallery, because it, because I was like, do you want me to buy it directly from you? He's like, it actually is better if you buy it through the gallery. I don't get as much, but the people that have gone and put their neck out for me and had my show at their gallery, the people that are supporting me, it's better if they
do well. Yeah.
If they are rewarded for being involved, sure, I would love to just get more money if you just came directly to me, but it's really better for the whole process if you go through them, because otherwise they may not do another show with me in a couple of years, because it might be like, it wasn't profitable. We can't do it, so, it's like, if you want to, getting involved with other people, you kind of have to, help them along too. And so, as much as that weird, very basic artist in me is like, oh, I want to work on this other thing now, the whole process of, like, getting everybody involved, making a book, I owe it to the whole process to be involved all the way through.
I get it. 100%.
Not like I wasn't going to, but I'm just saying, if you're asking me like what part of it I like, I have to say some parts are more fun, but like when I would put out records with my friend, we would have to like stop everything for a few months to promote and ship out records. This is in the 90s. We have like 1,500 copies of vinyl, and we're shipping them, and we're going to these different distributors and all this stuff, and we're working out, like, somebody will be like in Europe, they would want to license it because it was just easier for them to press it themselves, and get involved with their network there, and all of that stuff would interfere with the actual music making because it was just the two of us, so I understand somebody saying like, I can do it all myself, but sometimes it's also really good to like work with people that are really good at making phone calls before 11 a.m. in the morning or something, like, it's like, there's not enough can be said about people that are up before you wake up making phone calls on your behalf. That's like, that's
clutch.
Like,
you said something earlier. You're like, oh, I love the idea part of like having the idea. Like, I'm an idea guy. I'm the same way, dude. Like, I love, like, I'll be like, whatever it is, I have friends doing different things, and I'm always like, yo, I got an idea for you. Do this. Like, I want to see you do well with my idea, because I almost feel like if they do well with an idea I gave them, I get the same fulfillment as if I did it myself. Like, I don't care for the credit or anything, but that works. I love having the idea,
I have some friends that approach me with those sort of things, and I think part of me, the pride in me, doesn't want to really like work on somebody else's idea. Like, I'll feel indebted to somebody about something, but sometimes there's just some good insight on your own ideas, like, I almost feel like, like I should have somebody else curate my portfolio or something, because they'll see they're not as attached to them as I am. So they'll kind of, I mean, I do think that the world, I think a lot of us are idea guys, you know what I mean? There's a lot of idea people in the world. And I think that the truly special people are the ones that can follow through and execute those ideas. There's like a lot of people that be like, I'm an idea guy. I'm not saying you're not, to me, you do execute. I'm just saying, like,
no, I get it. I 100%, I get it.
I'm like, dude, everyone's an idea guy.
No, but if I could get paid, if I could get paid strictly for feeding ideas, that would probably be my dream one of two dream jobs.
Yeah.
One, get paid to just buy shit all day because I love buying things.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And then having ideas, like, sit me
Yeah.
in an office and pay me for my ideas. That would be incredible.
Of course, man. It would be a dream. It would be a dream. I just think there are people that can execute on good ideas, and that's the weird thing about it. Because in other parts of my life, I'm trying to write some stuff. I'm involved in like movie stuff every now and then, and I've read some pretty bad scripts and some mediocre stuff. And a good friend of mine is an editor, and I talked to him about it one time. I'm like, how does this happen? How does this happen? How is this getting made? He's like, well, these writers they finish a script, they execute on the idea, they do the idea. This whole Hollywood thing everywhere else, not just Hollywood as an industry, not Hollywood as a physical location anymore, because obviously there's a lot of productions going on in Georgia and Michigan and Canada and everywhere. It's not just Hollywood. These are huge machines of industry, and you got a bunch of people sitting around. They're not always gonna wait for the perfect, really good idea. They're gonna roll the dice on some kind of mediocre stuff too, just so that people are working, and that there's a machine. Like you're feeding like the streaming services with ideas and shows. They're not always the best, but they're enough to keep the machine running and keep people entertained. And so it's like, just finishing the idea is sometimes more important than the quality of the idea. I have a friend who started a design firm specifically so he could be a dependable designer in that space, because so many of the rest of us were like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you on Friday. I'll have it done by Friday. And then, oh, oops, Friday comes and you don't deliver. So you wait till Tuesday morning and you send it. And it's like that poor company is having a fucking stress out waiting for you to deliver something you said you have on Friday.
Graphic designers.
Hey, believe me, I've done it to people and I completely understand.
It sucks. It really, really sucks. Like, me and my wife, we have like a marketing agency, and I know how to use Photoshop and I can be a designer. I've designed 1,000,001 things. I just hate it. Like, I don't like doing it unless it's something I want to do. And I'm more concerned with just getting the shit done on time than I'm concerned with it being the best, most spectacular, amazing product. Like, I'm not going to win an award for a flyer. Like, it's just not going to happen. So dude, just get it to me on time.
I know it's very important. So I feel like that mentality, sometimes you have to apply that to your own thing as well. There's like a dozen phrases for it, but I think the one I often use, the version of it I use, is that perfection is the enemy of creativity. And what that means is that while you sit there and try to get something where you think it's right, it's already at a point where it can achieve what you think you wanted to do. Again, going back to this graphic design thing, it's like, it actually would have been more important to that person to have it on Friday than to have the version you think you needed to make on Tuesday, because the event's on Thursday or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, they just missed a bunch of time because you didn't, it didn't matter at that point. It's like, so, I think that's like a realization that is important. I haven't really acted on it as much as I should, because I just get really finessey and I want it to be, like that. And, with all these projects. So, I think that's an important part of just creating, is just to be able to allow yourself to move on to the next thing, or finish something. I'm sure that as somebody that's worked in music like you have, I'm sure that you have probably opened up some old files that you thought were maybe like 50%. And then you listen to it and you're like, this is kind of closer to like 80%. This is not so bad.
I'm the complete opposite, dude.
You're like, this thing's hot, I gotta open this. And
no, not at all. No, I finished I don't like to not have things finished.
Okay.
I have so many friends that I see as so much more talented than me, that are such great artists, musicians, whatever. And if it was like going through their black books or their drawing books, I'm like, yo, oh my God, I wish I could do this. Why didn't you finish it? And their attitudes are just like, yeah, didn't really like it too much. It was whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I grew up like looking at that, before I even like recorded anything. And
Right.
I was just like, I gotta finish it. Whatever it is I do, like I need to finish it. I
Okay.
like
I
I'll
like
never
it.
get, yeah. And that was it. And that's just kind of like my attitude. And that's why when I embarked on this journey of doing 365 days of videos, um,
Yeah. That's ambitious. I'll just say that's ambitious.
yeah, man. Well, this is gonna be episode 265. So I
Man,
got
I'm
100.
flattered to be involved. Thank you.
And
You know,
I'm honored to have you be a part of it, because definitely you've done so much dope stuff, and I'm so glad you were able to just
I
share.
kind of have. I've kind of done some dope stuff.
Yeah, and I'm glad I was able to talk to you and share this with everybody. But when I
Right.
embarked on that, I was just like, I have to finish this. I have to see this through no matter what. If I get one view on a video, if I get 10,000 views on a video, it doesn't matter. I can't be fixated on that, because
Yeah.
coming from the music background, right? Especially after having one huge hit record and a few subpar hitting records, my goal stopped becoming make something really good. It became more of, how many people can I get to hear what I'm doing or see
Right.
what I'm doing? And that took away from the art. And I didn't realize that till like way after the fact. So when I embarked on this,
Yeah.
that's not in going into this project.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
I'm also a big believer in that, like who is into it versus how many people are into it, and I've been very lucky that I kind of have a core group of people that I have a lot of respect for, that like my work or are aware of my work. And it means a lot to me. Of course, I'd love to just have like both, like
yeah.
millions of people following me, and also, whatever. And I'm not there yet. If it ever happens, I'm not. It's okay. It can't interfere with the idea of what you want to create, and that's what you're doing with your interviews. So I get it, man. I get it. And it's just to just grab it and do it. I think there's a fantastic quote from it's is it Ira Glass from This American Life. He was doing like a commencement speech at a graduation. It was for journalists, but it's a fantastic speech about creativity. And he's talking about how, as a creative, when you embark on these ideas that you're into and that you want to express, it's very difficult. Your ideas that you're creating, your creations don't match up to your level of critique, because you're beating yourself up. You're like, this isn't very good, and he says that a lot of people never make it past that phase and give up. He's speaking to journalists, but it applies to all of it.
Oh,
and
100%.
and just that there's a moment where you're kind of stuck in the thick of it, trying to learn the craft. And the reason you're so critical of your own creations is because you know what's good, and then you look at your own creation with that eye, and you're like, I don't know. And
Yeah.
it takes a while to get very comfortable with what you're creating. And a lot of projects that go unfinished, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think for myself and for many others, maybe those things weren't, the idea you had when you were drawing it or writing it or creating it or programming it, the idea turns into something different, and you kind of feel like maybe it didn't work out. But not everyone's able to know what you thought you were making. They just get into what it is. And you have to kind of roll with that sometimes and be okay with that and get comfortable with your own creative output. And it's a pretty fantastic quote. I hope that I've given people enough information to go find that online, but
No,
it's
that is dope. That is
it's a
really dope.
long speech, but it basically is talking about how you have to get comfortable with yourself and your own abilities before you can really break through and start. It takes a while. He says it takes some people years. It took him a very long time, he said, where you can be very confident in what you're creating. And that's why a lot of my projects kind of go unfinished, because I aspire to have it one way and it's like, didn't quite turn out. That's not good enough. I don't think it's good enough to put my name on it. Whatever. That's all internally. It's not like I'm some brilliant genius that needs to, have it perfect. I'm just saying that's the problem, is that, you can't set out to write the great American novel. You just have to write novels. And
Right.
then
One of
America
them,
decides it's a great novel,
right. That's one thing I found out. Like, I honestly, like, I love
Music especially.
what the record did for me, but I hate the record, right? Because I didn't really make that record. It was like this weird chain of events that made that record sitting behind me happen. It wasn't how I envisioned it. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't the song that I wanted. I thought I had a million, but you know what? I realized I'm not the one who makes that decision. Other people make that decision. And I basically learned how to rap in front of people. Like, I released my first album, not really knowing completely how to rap and produce, but I said, I can make a beat, I can rap, I can record. I just want it mixed and mastered. I want the art to look dope. I want everything to be like, you got it from a label. And that was what I sought after. Over the course of time, I became comfortable in my craft and myself and my skin. And I knew how to make what was sounding in my head, but it took me a while to get to that point. In that process, I released 15 albums and each one of them progressively got better. And now I don't want to do it anymore. Now I want to do something else. So now I'm learning how to be an interviewer, a broadcaster. I'm learning how to read off a teleprompter. You can go into my YouTube channel and see some of these videos when I just got the teleprompter and you can see my eyes bobbing around left and right,
Right.
And I'm learning in front of people, and it might be a turn off to some people. Maybe, it might not be professional, whatever the case is, but at the end of the day, I don't care. I'm working at this. And by 365, I'll have my goal completed and I will have a new one after. And
man, well, again, like I said, I appreciate being part of it. I'm flattered you want to even hear about some of these stories, So
well, at the end of the day, that's what this is really about, right? Every item, every piece of memorabilia, I mean, I have so much shit all around me, everything has a story to it. And I feel in this particular world of like toys, collectibles, no one has really told that story. Right. So I want to be the person to tell that story, like I feel like there is definitely stories behind all of these things. So, I do research on them and I talk about them. And, I learned a lot about you just through the research I did from the 3 episodes I did on the stuff that you put out. And it helped me on my journey to really understand these things, because there's so much more to these things to me than the surface value of what I'm looking at. Like, a rocket ship that looks like an Air Max 95, there's more to that. So like, I want to be the person to explain, the show's called No Hype, right? But it's really shit that gets you hype. You know what I'm saying? But the no hype part might be just, hey, there was only 300 of these made, right? So it's, maybe that's the part of it. It wasn't like super mass produced, but what is it about that would attract the person, to it? So
yeah, man. Well, one thing I like about your collection that I see on Instagram, you have a lot. There's something I wanted to do and then I just fell off. I didn't keep up with it. Is I wanted to collect toys that were musical artists or hip hop artists, so I've got a few. I've got the Biz Markie, rest in peace. Actually, it's the one time I met Biz Markie is at a toy signing at Kid Robot when he did a figure. I've got the Doom figure. I've got like a I've got the Master Ace, like, plushie, but Money Mark made a figure
I got that
with
too. It
Mo
was
Wax. Yeah.
Mo Wax one,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I just kind of fell off on it. I think I might even have like the Vanilla Ice figures somewhere in storage, but there's been so many more,
Yeah.
and you have a bunch, and I'm like, oh
I
damn,
I have
like,
a lot. I
yeah,
have
like I missed like the the reaction figures, right? Didn't they do
yeah, the
like
Old Dirty Bastard,
Biggie?
Run DMC,
Yeah.
Biggie, a bunch of Czarface figures.
I'm like friends with the guy from that company too, and I still didn't go. I didn't follow through, but they're probably still out there. I'm just saying I have a lot to catch up on, but it's dope. To me, that's like that's one of my favorite things are those hip hop toys, and I know that you're a big proponent of that.
Yeah,
But
and that's the whole vibe. There's some guys out in Malaysia that are doing a lot of custom ones. I don't know if you've seen this one. Let me see. I got this. Have you ever? I'm sure maybe we even spoke about this online. The bubble Darth Vader.
yeah, dude, that's an incredible collection that they have. Like they do the other ones too, right? Like the stormtroopers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little, that's one of those ideas. Maybe I think a lot of creatives have this. I'm a little envious and mad at that idea because
like why did I think of it? Yeah.
I feel like it's something that I might have thought of if I had been on that mental grind still. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, that idea works. That works. It's dope. I wish I had thought of that. So it's always out of respect for the person that made it.
Yeah.
But internally, I'm also feeling like it's, like I said, just a little pang of jealousy, like, oh, it's such a good idea. Damn it.
You seen this one?
There we go. No, that's nice, man.
It's a Bismarcky, like a little, what is that? It's called a plastiscope, but it's like it's like a Viewmaster, like
right. And there's like a frame in there.
There's like a bunch of images.
From videos and things.
Yeah, it's from the Weekend Warriors album. So this was a little obscure thing I found. I got a bunch of little shit like this all over the place.
Oh man, that's great.
So that about sums it up. Bill, where can we reach you online, and where can we find out about this book one more time?
Okay, thanks for asking. I'm on Instagram. That's primarily where I reside. It's just the word Billions on Instagram at Billions. I'm also on Twitter at Billions, but I don't really use that too much. And of course, my webpage, billmcmullen.com, has a bunch of my older work on there. But if you're interested in the book, the book is coming out like in September. If you order it, it's going to be delivered to you. It'll be available at a few bookshops and stores around. Actually, it's going to be in the Brooklyn Museum gift shop there, as well as a few other places in Los Angeles. It's a great book, and thanks for asking about that, man. But so just that's primarily where I'm at. Billions on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. If I missed anything, and trust me, I don't think we missed anything, leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Peace.